Well, hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone here today. Hope everybody can hear me fine. It's been a minute since I've taught one of these. Yeah. Hi, everybody. If you're tuning in for the first time, good to see you. My name is Carmen. Jess, Etta, and I are teaching a series of lessons on HTML and CSS. We're doing the Bad Website Club free web development bootcamp. Hey, everybody, good to see y'all. How's it been going? It's been a minute. Hope the semantic HTML has been good fun. I really appreciate it as a way to make your websites more accessible. Right. So let's do our usual housekeeping. But before we do, I just want to hear, how's it been going? How are we feeling about web development so far? We're covering a lot, so I imagine that there's got to be a lot of opinions. In the meantime, let me tell you about a little bit about what we're doing here. If you're tuning in for the first time, please know that by attending this bootcamp, you are agreeing to abide by our code of conduct. So if you go to badwebsite.club/code-of-conduct, you'll find everything you need to know about that. The short version is please act in a way with kindness and constructiveness. And if you see anything out of sorts, please let us know. You'll find the schedule for the bootcamp on badwebsite.club/bootcamps/spring-2026. Please also join us on Discord. If you go to discord.gg/uppercase K, uppercase V, uppercase U, lowercase m, uppercase V, uppercase X, and uppercase A. It's warm today. Sorry, folks. Give me a sec. Oh, gosh. It was very cold yesterday, so I came prepared, and it turns out I was a little too prepared. And yeah, if you miss any of these lessons and you want to join in, please go to youtube.com/@badwebsiteclub, and you'll find everything that's been recorded. So all of these streams get recorded, all of the sessions get recorded. And if you miss anything, don't worry. We're always on Discord. We're always around. So we just want you all to follow at your own pace. All right. So let's see what's been going on. Mel says, I've been getting better at organizing code and thinking about structure, more intuitive than I imagined. Some folks are gestionando, very nice. Feel great about it as long as I'm using an editor with proper auto tag closure. Yeah, like writing HTML by hand can be quite burdensome, so I totally hear you. So yeah, let's jump right in. Today we'll be doing something a little bit new. So yesterday we were covering forms, which is super cool. I love forms. That extra part of interactivity, right? Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be covering HTML tables, which I'm super excited about. I love tabular data in general. So yeah, let's go right into it. If you haven't used them before, before the session, whoa, this is too small. There we go. So yeah, before the session, we would have asked you to go through the reading for the tables themselves, complete the steps from build a final exams table, and complete the book catalog table over the next few days. We're going to be covering these two in particular and leave you all ready to do the lab itself. Matthew's saying, please saying that there is an easier way to make forms. Well, I would love to. This is a great comment because if I'm understanding correctly, Matthew, you're saying that forms are quite cumbersome to write or quite difficult to write. And I don't disagree with you, but what we lose in, let's say, what we lose in terms of simplicity, and I have such opinions about the word simple. Yes, it's a lot of work to write those forms, but what we gain there is that sort of adaptability, right? We can be very specific in terms of how we want to create our forms. But yeah, it's a lot of new stuff. And when you start working with things that are called frameworks, which are pre-written ways of writing web applications, you're going to find easier ways to create forms. Easier being easier being very subjective. You lose a lot of customizability, but it becomes less writing. So your mileage may vary. Is it possible to create form templates? So you can only have to make it once and then insert the code templates. Yeah, it's definitely possible. You would have to use some preprocessors for HTML. That's a little bit beyond the scope of this course. But what a lot of frameworks do these days either have plugins, like Eduardo says here. Plugins do macros or snippets. That's a lot of words. Essentially, shortcuts to be able to create forms quickly. And if not, there are, as said, frameworks that help you create those forms quicker. And you might see with tables, you'll have similar opinions as we go through it. So without too much dawdling, let's dive right into tables. Because if you haven't seen them before, they could seem a little bit overwhelming. And I just want to reassure you that you'll get used to them. Because remember, and I know I keep saying this, we don't have to memorize everything that we're learning in this boot camp. Just by being exposed to the concept of, say, a table, and you find yourself in the future thinking like, oh, you know what? That reminds me of when Carmen was just blah, blah, blabbling on about tables a year ago or 2 years ago. Maybe this is a situation that needs tables. You're already familiar with the concept. Of course, you can't, like, I'm going to be honest. Maybe 9 times out of 10, I need to reach for documentation to create a table. Because it's not about memorizing the syntax. This is something I really want to drive home. If you're going to be out here trying to memorize syntax, I don't think you're a human being. I think you're an AI language model. Like, it's really, really important to bear in mind that being familiar with the concept is far more important than memorizing the syntax. That said, let's look at tables. Can I expand this? No, I suppose not. In any case, what if I zoom in a little more? Yes. Okay, great. Let's take a look at this table here. And before we look at any code, let's just look, as I said, here at the HTML that's being rendered. We've got quick facts, software developers, quality assurance analysts, and testers. We've got medium pay, and this looks a little bit messy, doesn't it? What if I make it smaller? Bear with me, everyone, please. Hope the noise outside isn't too distracting. 23 medium pay. Cool. So we've got a header here and 2 columns. And you're going to see that this is not too dissimilar to, say, Excel or Google Sheets, where you've got columns and rows made up of individual cells of data. So here's a row made up of a cell and another cell. And this is how we write tables. Row, cell, cell. Row, oopsie. Row, cell, cell. Row, cell, cell. Row, selecting is hard. Row, cell, cell. Please interrupt me with questions, folks. Row, cell, and cell. And your table can also have a footer, right? So header, rows and cells, footers. That's sort of like the most important building blocks of a table in HTML. And when it comes to displaying data like this, you're going to find a lot of tables in the web. So now let's take a look at the code, the markup. So Matthew's asking, default is no grid lines showing. And this is accurate. So Matthew, what you're doing here is referring to the styling of the table, that is the way it's displayed, or the CSS. And that's correct. So by default, the table doesn't show grid lines. That is any kind of lines drawn to divide the different rows and columns of the cells, which, if you noticed, confused me when I was looking at it. I like my tables to have grid lines. If you had another TD, well, I will save this comment, Mel, because we haven't talked about the markup yet. So we have a table element, which tells our document, hey, inside here, we've got a table. And at the outermost level, a table is made up of 3 elements. T head or table head, T body or table body, and at the bottom here, T foot or table footer. So let's look at the T head first. So we've got inside that something called a TR or table row, right? Remember, each part of each section of a table is made up of rows and columns. Rows and cells. So inside this table row, we have a TH or a table heading. I don't want to be confusing with this, folks. I want to be super, like, I want to encourage all of you to be patient with yourselves over this. I know that you're like headings, but we've already done headings and headers, and it's a lot of different elements. Just remember, you don't have to memorize this. Just, how do I put this? Pick up on the vibe of what a table is made up of. Headings, rows, cells, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to actually be bad and ignore this for now. Bear with me. So inside our row, we have a table heading, which says quick facts, software developers, and so on and so forth. If we scroll down, that's what we see here. It's very hard to select text, huh? There we go. That's what we see here. And like I said, I'm going to ignore that col span for just a minute. Bear with me. Let's move on to our T body or table body. So just like with the table T head, the table header, it's made up of rows, right? We've got our first table row here. And again, we have our table heading. This is going to be what tells the table, hey, this is the type of data we're storing here. In this case, median pay. So TH and the next element, TD, both correspond to cell types, right? So a heading and a TD, which stands for data cell, both refer to cells. What makes them different semantically is that this one tells us what type of data we're looking at, and this tells us what we have in here is a value, right? So median pay is this much. Now, bear in mind we've got 2 cells in here, right? 2 cells in a row. This tells us that this row has 2 columns, right? And each column holds a cell in it. Now, with HTML tables, a HTML table is made up of rows with multiple columns. We don't work in columns with multiple rows with HTML tables. Now, again, don't stress about memorizing this. Whenever you remember that you need a table, I would highly recommend just going on documentation, something like MDN, and looking up how to write a table. So again, table row, 2 columns. Let's look at the next one. And you're going to see the structure is very similar. Table row with a heading and a cell. A heading cell and a data cell. Next row, next row, next row, next row, next row. Let's go down to our footer, which has a row, and just a heading saying if this table had a footer, it would be here. Now, let's go back to line 4. We see this table heading has an attribute of colspan set to the value 2. You might be wondering what colspan is. That is, how many columns does this cell span? To put it in other words, how many columns does this cell take up? So we're telling it, yes, it's one cell, but it takes up 2 columns. I've got a question here. When a screen reader reads a table, does it try to read the TH and then the corresponding TD elements? And the answer to that is, in this scenario, yes. Because remember that a screen reader will read each line in order. It will first read the TH and then the TD. But if they're in opposite order, I actually don't know. I would imagine that it would first read the TD and then the TH. The best way to find out is to experiment with that. I love what Mel's saying here. The way a table works is similar to a database or spreadsheet. Each row has data columns. Perfectly put. As you all know, I like to experiment to find out new things. So what if I add a new row, a new TD that is a third column in this row, and I would imagine that I'll need to refresh my page. Is that correct? Most likely. Let me just refresh here real quick. Put a new cell here, and we can't see it. However, we can always use the developer tools. I know it's going to be a bit messy because I have to zoom in for the stream, but let me see if I can show my table here. Styles, computed layout. I love DevTools. DevTools are great. Tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to temporarily, and I know this is cheating, I'm going to temporarily add some CSS that will add some background color to my cells for all TDs, not just this one, my bad. Can I not do that? Oh yeah, I can, cool. Background red. Yes. Now, I know it's difficult to see, but you saw here, where did I add? Yes, line 30 for number of jobs 2022. I have TD, an extra TD cell. And if you look here, it is there, but it's empty. So let's add some content. Hello, wait, yes, look. So I just added a third column here. So the way that HTML renders or displays the table, it knows and is smart enough to make sure everything is arranged to look like a table. So even though only this row has a third column, it still makes space for that column itself. And hey, let's make this header span 3 columns. Now, this table is 3 columns wide. Oh, let's see. Why is my progress not saving? I have to start from the beginning every time. Can you elaborate on that, Zenith Dev World? Because when you're signed in, can you tell us maybe what browser you're using? This is more of a technical support issue with Free Code Camp. What I would recommend is maybe going on the Discord and asking for help. Folks are recommending that you log on to Free Code Camp. That's really helpful. I have to start from the beginning every time I sign in. From the beginning of the session itself, do you mean the whole course? Yeah, could you maybe give us more information? I'm really sorry that this is something that I can't really help with from here because I can't see your computer. In any case, I have taken us on a side quest for long enough. How do I close? Oh gosh. Let me close my dev tools and go back to tables itself. So yeah, that's tables in a nutshell. And of course, before mobile web browsing was common, tables were super common for displaying tabular data. But what happened with mobile is that we got much smaller screens. And you would have, I mean, we're seeing that today, right? With like how big the tables are for us. When you have less screen real estate, it becomes harder to render all of the table data. So these days, you will probably have tables with single columns or just 2 columns. But this isn't the only use that we've seen historically for tables. Now, back in my day, we used to use tables for positioning elements on the window, on the web page. So for layout. And you might see older websites or websites that have older code lying around that have this use of tables for layout. I would recommend not doing that. It wasn't the best idea back then. It's definitely not the best idea right now. When we get into CSS, we're going to learn about things like grids and flexboxes, which make layouting a lot easier. Now, since we're on the topic of layout and tables, could anybody maybe tell me why we might want to use tables instead of just, say, a bunch of divs? Oh, Mel's saying you can put any element in a table. It reminds me of CSS Grid, which we are going to learn about in this bootcamp. And there it comes. Semantics. Because div is a block element. Can you elaborate? What do you mean by block element? Tables are semantically correct for displaying data. Divs don't mean anything. Hold on. Semantics. And they look okay without formatting? Absolutely. Accessibility, very important. And they allow us to specify and organize information more accurately semantically. This is all super correct, folks. I'm really glad that we're doing so well with some HTML semantics. So sorry, Matthew, I don't know what you're referring to. there. um, let's do some Q&A. In an HTML table, which elements are contained inside a TR element? Because really there's only two types that we should be inserting into a TR. We've got T-head and T-foot. We've got TD and TH, table and T-body, div and span. And it is totally okay to scroll up and look at the, that we got it. Look at folks knowing so much. I love it. It is indeed TD and TH. Thank you very much. Next, which of the following are the main sections of an HTML table? So we've got table, div, and span, header, section, and footer, T-head, T-body, and T-foot, article, aside, and nav. Oh, that's about it. What do we think? Semantically, a lot of these are quite similar. Oh, folks are already joining in. T-head, T-body, and T-foot. That's very correct. Now, what is the main recommended use of HTML tables today? We've got creating page layouts, displaying tabular data, styling with CSS, and embedding images. What I like about what is both great and kind of scary about HTML is that you can really put anything inside HTML tables, but you really want to be deliberate about your use of tables. So let's go with tabular data. It's what people are saying. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Oh, got an interesting comment here. One thing I noticed in email signatures, which, fun fact, are made up of HTML a lot of the time, due to the limited reading ability of some email clients, it's better to use traditional tables for an e-signature than any connected CSS files. So yeah, I got to tell you, when my email signature, for example, is just text. I don't know. I find email to be something very pragmatic and to the point. So I try to avoid putting in like fancy CSS and stuff. But yeah, a lot of email is HTML. But like my first ever client, he does his email in the terminal. So like he can't see any of that. Cool. Let's check our answers. And we figured out tables. Let's pat ourselves on the back, everybody. Pat, pat. And let's go back to our lesson. And really today, pretty straightforward. Do you know what? Let's see what the time is. We're about half an hour in, got about half an hour left. I would like to, if it's okay with everybody, spend some time going through the Build a Final Exams table. It's a workshop, right? I think so. I think it's a workshop. Yeah. Let's go through this workshop together since we've got the time for it. It's 10 steps. Please, everybody, ask questions as we go. And I'll just show you my problem-solving techniques, so to speak. Because this time around, we're going to be practicing HTML tables, which we've just learned, and showing how to do it. So we've got our step one, which says insert our body element, nest the table element. And if this is your first time working with the free code competitor, we've got our instructions on this side here. We've got our coding editor here in the middle and our HTML here on the right. There's not a lot of space, but we'll make it work. So nest the table element. Can do that. Table. And of course, we close our table. And that's all we got to do for now. If we check our code, we'll see our code passes. And I like to pat myself. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. It's really good to go through these workshops because they also teach us about other aspects of the elements we're working with. For example, a table can have a caption. And again, going by the semantics of the name, we can assume that a caption is going to be a label that goes with our table to tell us what this table displays. So inside our table element, we're going to nest, that is, place inside a caption element with the text calculus final exam grades. Caption. Always got to close our HTML element. And look at that. We can already see it show up. Fantastic. Let's check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. Let's keep moving. And folks, please feel free to interrupt me with questions. Next, we're going to add our T head element. It's going to be below our caption, and we're going to add it completely empty. T head. Naturally, given there's no content to it, we just see the element itself. It is in the markup. So if we inspect with our dev tools, we are going to see that there's a T head in there. We just can't see it because it's got no content, but nothing to worry about. Let's check our code, which works. Pat, pat. Let's keep moving. Cool. So if you see these, you should know that we're doing this in collaboration with Free Code Camp. They're completely free, open source, and community supported. So if you can, if you've got some money, please give it to them. But if you don't, that's fine too. For example, I do so on another account, and it took me a while before I had the means to be able to support them financially. All right, so I'm going to click on Ask Me Later and keep moving, because next we're going to be adding our headings. Now, here's something that's interesting. In the write-up, in the reading for tables, we were seeing the table headings on the side, right? On the left side column. But we can also place them into the T head row. So instead of having our headings on the left, we're having them at the top. So let's go ahead and do that. So inside our T head element, we're going to have a TR. We remember that is a table row. That is like this. Sina's saying, wow, I always thought it was TH and TR. So we have TH for headings, which go inside a TR, that's a row. And inside a row, there can be either a heading, which is TH, or TD, which is data cell. So inside our TR element, we're going to have 3 TH elements. Folks, you know what? I'm lazy. I'm going to select this line, copy it, and paste it twice. So, in our first TH element should contain the text last name. The second one should contain the text first name. And the third one should contain the text grade. So that looks good to me. Again, check our code, which passes. Pat, pat. Let's keep moving. I hope it's okay if I go through this with you all today. If we want to go somewhere else, if we want to work on something else, totally fine. Lucy's asking, so the T head just designates a special heading row, so the column headings. Yes, in this case, we're designating a special top let me try that again. You have a top row, which is head, which means it's semantically the top of the table. And in there, we placed our headings. Yeah. And I like this. Not lazy, efficient. That's true. Loaddle's saying, let's say you need 4 THs inside a TR. You go, oh, right. That's with one of these plugins. They're talking about Emmet, which is a way of writing HTML that has a lot less uses of the tags. Yep. Thank you, Loaddle. Sorry, I was like, I don't use Emmet myself, so I was like, what? So T body. Oh, and that's it. We just want to just add our T body. Fantastic. Check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. Let's keep moving. Now, see, it's a table data element. So we're going to add a table row inside our T body. Close TR. And inside, we're going to have 3 table data elements. So we'll do that. Perfect. And we will have 3 of them, just like before, because 3 columns. Doot, doot. So the first one will be Davis. Second one will be Alex, which we remember is the first name. And the grade will be 54, which I assume would be percent. I hope that's a passing grade. Yeah, cool. Pat, pat. I'm going to take a second. So each part of the table we're talking about requires and shoulds. Okay. But the TH is specific to the header. But then the TD is specific to the data that is relevant to it. Then, of course, we have a footer. Okay. Let's take a step back and look at what the different elements are. So at the very minimum, a table should have a body with 1 or more rows, right? So table, T body. Let me try that again. Table, T body, TR. That's what we need to start building a table. We can have a T head. We can have a T foot, but we do not have to. Okay? Because not every table needs a header and a footer. Not every table needs headings. But if you're going to make a table, you're kind of makes sense to have rows. Remember, this is HTML. With HTML, we can do whatever the heck we want, but we got to make it semantically good, right? So really, at the minimum, when we build a table, and it's like just the most bare bones table in the world, we want table. Oh, there's my hand. Table, T body, TR, and TD. That's it. That is the most bare bones table you can get. If you want to have headings, we want TH. If we want to have a header that is a special header row at the top, then we use the T head element. Now, I'm going to remind you, I'm going to really drive this home again. Do not worry about memorizing this. 9 times out of 10, I need documentation to look up how to make an HTML table. So any concerns of shoulds or requirements kind of go out the window with HTML, unless it's really the purpose of the table. So Mel's saying TH is what you use to put headers down the side. T head will make the first row all head elements. So if you do both, you will get bold text at top and the downside. Correct. However, look at this table we have here, the one we've been working on. Our headings are in the head. Let me try that again. Our headings are in the header. Heading, different from header. Right? I know it's confusing, but a heading is what denominates the type of data. The header is just at the top. A header does not necessarily have to have a bunch of headings. It just has to semantically make sense. Do you want my recommendation? If this isn't making 100% sense, that's okay. Remember, we're just getting the vibe of tables. Oh, El Waddle, I'm going to show your comment in just a minute because I love it. So you would put a TD element in the T head, not to not have as a heading, but as a value. Correct. Yep, you got it. El Waddle is saying it's more important to understand the philosophy than to memorize patterns. Couldn't have put it better myself. Semantic HTML is to make sure basic functionality of a website is accessible and easy to maintain. So first, figure out what the table is for. Research docs for table type, then build. Case by case basis, be familiar with the concepts, not with all the syntax. This is what browser lookups are for. MDN. Correct. We as web developers are not going to be paid to memorize to memorize the syntax of a table. And that's it. Love it. Thank you all for putting that so much better than I could have. So now, oh, Mel, I love this. So no one rule fits all. You got to think about what you build before you build it. Yeah, but that's really good. It's kind of liberating in a way. I know it sounds like it's all kind of, oh, no, I don't want to use this term, vibe coding. It's more like you want to make sure that you understand the purpose of the thing that you're building. Oh, love this. Problem solving skills. And that's it. It's not humanly possible to memorize all syntactic rules and elements of all languages anyway. Nope. Languages evolve, syntaxes evolve, standards evolve. It's all evolving. So back to our workshop here. At this point, Free Code Camp is kind of taking away the direct instructions and really letting us focus on what we need to do. So it's saying, hey, add a row with these data elements. Last name Doe, first name Samantha, grade 92. Ooh, that's a good grade. So I'm going to copy this row because I'm lazy. Make this Doe, Samantha, and grade 92. Got another one to add here. Last name Rodriguez. First name Marcus. 88. Looks good. Pat, pat. Let's move on. I want to take a moment for this question from Mel. Do you think building prototypes while still figuring out what you're building is a good idea, or should you have a good idea of what you're building first? I'm going to answer this question in a way that might be frustrating, and that is that I highly recommend not becoming emotionally attached to your code, right? So let's say you've built a website for recipes and you're using a table, and then 2 weeks later you realize it doesn't look that good on mobile, right? You will have to rewrite that code. And you might think, oh, if only I had the perfect idea of what to build. No, that's not how it works. Unfortunately, but also kind of fortunately. What I would recommend is to not spend so much time stressing about, oh, what is the perfect way to build this? Or, oh, what am I'm going to build the one size fits all solution to something. You're not. And you know how I know you're not? Because look at every web service you use online, right? Every 6 months they come out with a new redesign, and then you can't find anything. But why are they doing that? Because they are refining their user experience or UX. So if you're more focused on how can I make this code easily adaptable, that is much more valuable to you, the developer. Also, I love this. Uh, perfectionism is, oh no, no, sorry, Matthew. I want everything in order first. Yeah, no, perfectionism is something that I recommend harnessing. I've heard of devs talking about kill your, oh gosh. When devs spend a long time on something, only to remove it all later. Yeah, I mean, how does it, you will abandon projects. You will abandon ideas. And I love this recommendation from Paul. Always build for the smallest screen first. That's actually a really good point. Perfect is the enemy of the good. Waddle's talking about LaTeX. Oh gosh, I wrote one of my papers on LaTeX. It teaches you a lot about yourself. Oh gosh. Yeah. So let's continue. Use the following data for the table data element. So we're going to put in Thompson, Jane, 77. And then we're going to add Williams, Natalie, and grade 83. And you're starting to see it's starting to sort of like flow. You know what I mean? Not bad. Matthew's saying, what is the reality that when you start, you're actually cleaning up others' legacy code? Your mileage may vary, honestly. Like some folks end up cleaning, like I started out working on others' code professionally, but some folks build their own thing. I don't know if there's a reality per se. There's no real rule here. Oh, I love this. I am the complete opposite. I jump in and write a bunch of and then try and clean it up after. Not sensible. I disagree. I think it's very sensible. Do you know why? Because a lot of folks get like blocked by that sort of like, no, I need to write this the perfect way. But this, you're putting it in front of yourself. You're putting it in front of, listen, I'm not saying that this is the perfect way to write code, especially when you're building like, enterprise level code or for a client or something. But when you're drafting, when you're in the middle of building, this can be a very, very positive heuristic. I don't know. I like it. It's something I use a lot. I like to just put it in front of people and be like, check out my mess. So yeah, I don't know. I love that this bootcamp is all about experimentation and getting weird. I mean, that's how it is. Also, you're not going to know until you try it. Some people say learn by doing. I definitely like learning by doing. Felina Hermans, who's who's very, very clever, is a neurologist and writes about The Programmer's Brain, which is an excellent book. If you're into that sort of thing, I can definitely recommend it. She told me once that there's actually no such thing as everybody learns differently, but rather everybody learns in different contexts. So, sorry, I got distracted. Add a T-foot element to the table. You remember that's the footer. And add a TR. And you're seeing this is flowing. Oh, I love this. Make it fail, make it pass, make it efficient. Love it. So, 2 TD elements. Now notice this footer has 2 data cells, 2 columns. First one should say the text average grade. Can do. Text 78. 78.8. Fabulous. Pat. We got one more. Can I do it? Is it okay? If the TD element used for the average grade would span across 2 columns instead of just one. We're going to use the col span. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a try. Coal span equals. Sorry, I haven't typed. It's a holiday here in Austria, so I like to think my brain is in holiday mode. Now we see that our average grade spans 2 columns. That's what they wanted us to do, right? Yeah. Inside the opening TD tag, add this coal span element and set it to 2. Does that work? We did it. Tat tat. Sorry to take up all the phone. All the phone. All the fun, everybody. Jane Sang is the author of Felina Hermans. Yes. Great book. It's called The Programmer's Brain. Great read. It's in my bookshelf downstairs. Writing tables for fun on holiday. Hey, everybody has different ideas for fun. I like writing tables. So yeah, what's left for today, folks? We're actually kind of wrapping up early here. We've got a lab to do today as well. And you're going to see that I keep leaving y'all with labs. We've got our boilerplate code, and we're going to be building a book catalog table. We've got our user stories, and we have our tests. Remember, test-driven development. Make sure each test passes at a time, and be patient and kind with yourself. If you ever run into trouble, be sure to ask questions. Remember, there's the Discord. Lots of space for this stuff. So that's kind of it for today. Let's look at what we'll be doing tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be reading about an HTML validator. So for homework for tomorrow, please read the HTML validator. Read up on the DOM inspector and dev tools. Cool, I'm excited. This is a great book. This is a great topic. I love the dev tools. We're going to be going over the review and HTML tables and forms quiz and building the survey form. And yeah, I guess I don't see any further questions. So how about we call it a slightly early day and take it easy, take in what we've learned, and remember, just be patient with ourselves. I'm really glad that you all enjoyed the lesson. I had a great time too. And yeah, I'll catch you all tomorrow. Wish you all the best. Bye for now.